Two children were sent to the attic by their mother. Their task? To clean out their broken and unwanted toys and belongings. Boring job? Not after they made their discovery. They started by working on the old crate in the corner. It was littered with some old clothes and discarded little pieces of tin and good wood, stored away with a sincere promise of reclamation, recreation, and finally, resurrection, a new thing made from hunks of junk. It was hard working on the crate's junk. It was in such an awkward position. With the grit that comes from true determination, the kids heaved and hoed the crate to the center of the room. And that's when they saw it. Not believing what their own eyes were telling them, they finally had to accept it. Oh yeah, it was there all right. A tiny door revealed itself right in front of them. The crate had been covering it up for years. Where did it lead? What was behind it? Was something locked up in there? Or was it the home of someone or something permitted to come out at will and prowl through the house in darkness, returning to its secret hideout like Dracula? Walking slowly, like two explorers creeping up on a sleeping lion, they tiptoed to the tiny door. Gathering up another cauldron of courage, Elizabeth, the older of the two, begins to turn the door's inconspicuous, whitewashed knob. Creaking and squeaking, it finally let loose. Bam! The door flew open. Elizabeth fell backwards, encircled by a family of bats. Her younger brother, Marshall, sprang to action. He flew open the window and shooed out the bats, closing the window. Another bam! It didn't take long for the call.
Elizabeth! Marshall! What are you doing up there? Great balls of fire!
Said their mother.
I asked you two to clean up, not bring the house down. Now you two wash up. It's dinner time.
Elizabeth and Marshall went over to the tiny door one more time. This time, they held hands and both stuck their heads in the space. Ugh, nothing in there except a big, furry spider. Marshall coaxed it into a little jar and claimed it as his newest pet. Said Elizabeth. Have we discovered a secret hiding place? A place nobody knows about? A place to hide treasure, gold and silver. Marshall, in a cranky tone that appears when he's hungry, said, Lizzie, we don't have silver and gold. Come on. I'm hungry. Let's go. As he stomped down the circular old wooden staircase. Elizabeth followed, but took one more look at the newly discovered secret place. Then she named it the Cubbyhole and made herself a promise to honor that cubbyhole with secret treasures. Dinner was delicious that night. The harvest was finished. The root cellar was full. There was a colorful array of carrots, pumpkins, red beets, and potatoes, apples, and pickles, and much more. There was beef jerky, salted pork, cured beef, and venison. Venison is a fancy way to say deer meat. Yes, it was a bounty all right, and would certainly get the family of 4 through the winter. Yet, even with well-prepared, appealing food in front of her, Elizabeth was distant throughout the meal. Elizabeth's imagination wandered to something else. The cubbyhole. Marshall was right, she thought. There was no treasure, no gold or silver. just a pipe dream.
Elizabeth, it's rude to not participate in dinner conversation. I certainly do not expect children to take over the conversation, but I do expect you to respectfully listen to the conversation.
Her father continued. Yes. Well, it seems to have all blown up after the parade. It's spreading like wildfire. William's letter came in today. He writes that Horace and Guinevere and their 6 have it. Maud and Willis have a horrible dose of it, and the area where we stayed in Philadelphia is now filled with it.
Filled with what, Father?
Elizabeth was all ears now. Well, Lizzie, it's called the influenza of 1918, and it's quite a bad sickness. Elizabeth immediately stood up.
Philadelphia! Philadelphia! That's it!
What in tarnations is wrong with that girl, Martha?
Great balls of fire, Elizabeth,
said her mother.
You've been off to the races all day. What is going on with you?
Mother, may I please be excused from the table? I have something terribly important to tend to.
May as well go ahead. Your mind is certainly not with us now. Come back in half an hour and help me clean up.
Elizabeth ran upstairs and climbed the old wooden spiral staircase, pouncing on a pile of hay that came out of the crate. Philadelphia, Philadelphia, she whispered to herself. Her mind drifted off to one of the best times in her life. It was September 13th. Uncle Eddie came early. His horse-driven wagon was big enough to seat the family and their overnight bags. Then it was off to Mahanoy City, to the train station, where they all boarded the Lehigh and Mahanoy Railroad. Elizabeth and Marshall loved the train ride, and just when they thought it couldn't get any better, the train stopped. Its doors opened, right to where their cousins and their Uncle William and Aunt Emily were standing. The children were jumping up and down, and amidst the steam spouting from the front of the train, it was like a piece of heaven, complete with clouds. After getting settled into the house, the children went upstairs, each one claiming their spot on the floor by laying out their blankets. They spoke of their anticipation about tomorrow's parade. One by one, they drifted off to sleep. The parade route passed right in front of the house. But before the music of the marching bands, there was the music of the vendors walking by, singing out the names of their wares.
Popcorn, soft pretzels here, yum-yums for sale.
Yum-yums was the nickname in Philadelphia for Italian ice. All of the children got something. Then the bartering began.
I'll give you a piece of my pretzel for a handful of popcorn. Deal. How about 2 mouthfuls of yum-yum for 2 mouthfuls of cotton candy? You got it. Hot dog.
The trading was interrupted by the steady click-clacking of a beautiful horse with the Grand Marshal on his back. It sounded just like the grandfather clock back home in the parlor. The parade went on for 2 hours. One of the bands, directed by John Philip Sousa himself. There were also clowns, all kinds of unusual animals and acrobats. Nothing like that could be seen in good old St. Nicholas. There was another thing that happened, and it never happened in St. Nicholas either. Lots and lots of sneezing. Yes, sneezing. Lots of people were sneezing. They said it was because of the animals.
A new flea powder was used on them that made people sneeze. Eventually, people left the crowd because of the sneezing, and that made them miss one of the best parts of the parade. A special group of Philadelphia's policemen mounted Philadelphia's first fleet of Arabian horses. They performed intricate drills, while at the same time, the officers threw wooden tokens at the crowd. And they gave them as a remembrance of this special parade. That's it! My memento! My token! My souvenir from the first fleet! Elizabeth said out loud, jumping up from the haybed, breaking her dream state, and thrusting herself right back to the newspapered walls of the attic in St. Nicholas. Lizzie, Mom wants you to go down and help her with the cleaning up. Marshall fell backwards on the haybed, too. What are you so googly about? He asked his sister. Oh, I have a bellyache. Too many sweet taters. Oh, should have not slipped that last one in my pocket and ate it. Serves you right, Marshall Edward Weatherby. You should have more discipline at 10 years old. Oh, and you, a grand lady of 12, are ya? Oh. Well, I know this, she huffed. I know what the cubbyhole should be used for. A secret memento keeper. Memento keeper? What's a memento keeper? It's pronounced memento. A memento is a keepsake from a special time you experienced. And I think we should use the cubbyhole for storing away our treasures from important and memorable events. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. Oh, my aching belly. Elizabeth Victoria Weatherby, I am tired of waiting for you. Come down here right now and help me with the dinner cleanup. Great balls of fire, that girl will be the death of me. With no support from her brother, a much deflated Elizabeth slowly and deliberately dropped down each step. Now she had to think about a new use for the cubbyhole. What could it be? A clear ray of sun struck Elizabeth's eye like a piercing bolt of lightning. It woke her up from a deep sleep. Chickens cackling, roosters crowing, the smell of scrapple frying, the sound of neighbors talking over the fence. These are the familiar signs that morning has broken in the patch. Yet, this morning felt differently. The sounds, smells, and sights were all the same, except each seemed packed with more energy, more intensity. Something was going on. Even breakfast was different. No one spoke. Martha and Dale just looked into their plates, moving food around their dishes. Nary a sound. Elizabeth got up to clean off the table. Her father gently grabbed her hand. Just sit down, daughter. Your mother and I have news for you and your brother. A second letter came this morning. It's from your Uncle Williams. Things are happening fast in Philadelphia. He wrote and sent this letter a few hours after the last one. He was afraid that if he didn't tend to this right now, he wouldn't be able to get us at all. Dale got up from the table. Turning his back from his family, he walked towards the closet. He was trying to hide the fear on his face. The influenza is now rampant
in Philadelphia. All the homes on the parade route are quarantined, including your uncle's. Everyone your uncle knows is stricken with the illness, including your aunt and cousins. It's all happening fast. There's more, he added, because you both had close contact with your cousins, sleeping together in one room, trading your treats at the parade, sharing snacks. He thinks it's best for you two to stay quarantined in the house for a couple of weeks. Me and your mom, too. We talked about it before you got up. Talked to Dr. Holland as well. It's the right thing to do. We've told the neighbors it's all settled. It's what's best for everyone. Elizabeth was numb. In 30 seconds, what Elizabeth remembered as the best day of her life turned out to be the scariest day of her life. Stunned and a bit dazed, Elizabeth and Marshall got up from the table and headed to the attic. With bowed heads and shoulders, the children plopped on the pile of hay from the crate. That old room with the newspapered walls and the newfound cubbyhole was beginning to take shape, beginning to take on the role of a private meeting place for the two kids. Elizabeth looked at her token from the parade much differently now. It was becoming a reminder of worry and sick cousins. She began to cry. Marshall laid his hand on her shoulder. Lizzie, it's gonna be okay. And the cousins will be okay too. So will Uncle and Auntie. You wait and see. They're strong, and so are we. It's all gonna work out. Marshall's kind and tender words released the flood of emotions in Elizabeth's heart. She put her arms around him and cried into his chest. From that moment, a new bond formed between them, one that lasted their entire lives. Seriously, sis, we have to stay strong. We can do this. But how? We can't even go out of the house. Yes, we can, he fired back. We just have to stay on the property and distance ourselves if someone comes along. We can make it a quest. Do you remember when we were talking to the cousins about the patch? Remember how interesting they thought it was? Well, I think what we do around here is interesting too. And maybe other kids would think the same. Marshall went on with excitement and adventure in his voice. Remember when Dad took us to the library? Well, the book I read was a story about an English sailing ship. Every day, the captain wrote down the news that happened that day. It's called a captain's log. They shipwrecked, but he kept on writing. People still read that log, and it's over 100 years old. Let's do the same thing. Let's keep a log for as long as we're in quarantine. Maybe kids will read it 100 years from now. Elizabeth saw Marshall in a whole new light. He was not the same old whiny brat that was always playing pranks and fooling around. He was a boy with sense and understanding and a great idea. Elizabeth went through the day, her mind swirling with ideas. What should they log first? Should it be done like a captain's log, beginning of the day till the end? What about putting the most important things first? Is that the way it should be approached? Or should they start with the things they love the best? Yes, that's it. Start with the fun first. No doubt about it, games and fun activities should top the list. Let's see, she said to Marshall. What games could be played in the house with only 2 players or just our family? Marshall jumped up and yelled, "Marbles!" It wasn't surprising to Elizabeth that Marshall should say that. He loved playing marbles. He did it all the time. The only problem was, what if the kids in the future had never heard of the game? A full description and instructions would have to be included. They began their log with a meticulous description of the game. The way Marshall described it, it became alive. Elizabeth could see it in her mind's eye. So here's what you'll need: a small marble collection and a marble pouch. Chalk if you're playing outdoors, or string if you're indoors. Here's how it's done. Draw a 3-foot wide circle on the pavement in chalk, or make one out of string if you're indoors. Choose your marble shooter. This is your largest marble in the pack. Put 5 or up to 10 marbles in the center of the ring. When it's your turn, kneel outside the ring and flick your shooter marble out of your fist with your thumb, aiming to hit as many marbles out of the ring as you can. You keep the marbles you knocked out and then have another turn. If you don't knock any marbles out of the ring, leave your shooter marble in the ring and wait your turn while others play. Continue until the ring is empty. The winner is the person with the most marbles at the end of the game. You can then return your marbles to the others, or you can keep them if you've agreed to play for keeps. Now it was Elizabeth's turn. What game was her favorite game? Yes, I got it. It's all the schoolyard games I played with my school friends. Diving into her memory, she thought about all the good times at school. And even though some of those games were played with a group, they could be played with two as well. She treasured those times and relived those memories to such an extent that it was as if she could see the recollections right in front of her, right before her very eyes. After giving it a lot of thought, Elizabeth realized the game that was always fun to play, rain or shine, was jacks. Here's the St. Nicholas version of how jacks is played, Elizabeth said, while Marshall wrote the instructions in the book. You need a little ball and a bunch of jacks, but stones or seeds will do as well. Gather all the jacks in your hand and gently throw them out onto a hard surface, a smooth surface, on the ground, and do it right in front of you. When you throw them out, try not to let them scatter too far. Here's St. Nicholas's rules. Throw the ball into the air. Try to pick up one jack while the ball is in the air. Let the ball bounce one time and catch it. Continue picking up the jacks one at a time. This is the first round, and it's called onesies. When you have collected all the jacks, the onesies round is over. If you throw the ball up and can't pick up the jacks or can't catch the ball, your turn is over. The next time it's your turn, you have to start at onesies again. One bounce while picking up one jack. If you did get all the jacks picked up, you go to twosies. You keep playing until you either miss the ball or you get all the way to tensies. When your turn is over, you pick up your remaining jacks on the floor. The next player starts a turn by throwing her jacks on the floor, just like you did, and does the exact same thing as you did. Throwing the ball up, picking up a jack, let the ball bounce once and catch the ball. When onesies is completed, the next step is twosies. That means when the ball is in the air and bounces once, you pick up 2 jacks and then try to catch the ball. The next step is threesies. That's when you pick up 3 jacks before you catch the ball. Continue on playing, picking up more jacks each round. The winner is declared as the one who gets to tensies first, or the one with the most jacks when the time is up. Each new round begins on the last level you achieved when it was your turn. Your turn continues until you either miss the ball or finish tensies. Their log, which actually was turning into a book, was really coming together. But this chapter wouldn't be finished until they put one last thing in their book. It was the real favorite, above all the games and activities. It was their love for music that was at the top of the list. Let's put in games and songs Mother and Dad taught us last winter when we had that snowstorm that kept everyone in the house for days.
That'll be fun. Let's pick up the ones we like best. How about There's a Hole in the Bottom of the Sea?
That's a good one. I think we should add John Brown's Baby and Keep Moving.
Hot dog! I like the games we played too. Let's teach 'em Animal Vegetable and I Spy with My Little Eye and 20 questions.
The children worked all day on writing all the details down in the book, completely forgetting about the world and all of its troubles. They were in their own safe place, protected by the newspaper walls of their attic. Only one question remained. It was Marshall who voiced it.
Where can we keep our book so no harm can come to it?
With their newfound bond, it was like the 2 children read each other's minds, and at the same time they shouted in unison, "The cubby hole!" All was well with the world that night in the Weatherby's house in good old St. Nicholas. After dinner, the 2 children fell off into a deep sleep with marbles and schoolyard memories on their mind. All the songs listed here, as well as Animal Vegetable, I Spy with My Little Eye, and 20 questions, will be taught at the upcoming Zoom class. Come and join the fun. Can't wait to meet you. See you soon.